The first thinker that we're going to discuss here today is often considered the father of the philosophy of language, or really more the formalizer of it as its own discipline. While some philosophy of language, and some very important philosophy of language at that, was done by earlier philosophers including Plato, John Locke, and John Stuart Mill, it is really with Gottlob Frege, born 1848, died 1925, that we get philosophy of language as its own unique discipline in Western philosophical systems, European philosophical systems. Now, Frege was a proponent of what's known as linguistic realism or direct realism. Right? Similar to the direct realism of the naive realism of the perceptual theories, linguistic realism says that the words we use actually pick out real entities, right? They directly refer to entities in the world. So when I say water, right, I'm talking about something that is real. It's picking out an object directly and referring to it. It latches on to entities in the world, right? So this is the position, to give it a more solid definition, that statements are all propositions. Right? That is, that they are true or false, assertions that are true or false, that have some direct reference to the objects in the world. And that's just a way of saying that when I say my phone, I refer to specifically this phone and not some other phone. Now, for Frege, his theory, his version of the direct reference theory of linguistic realism, and do understand that there are multiple versions of this, right, is what's known as the sense theory of meaning. Right? And it is built on three different components. For Frege, the three major components that create how language works are the sign, which is the word, sentence, or thought. It is the singular part of an expressed meaning. Right? There is the sense or Sinn. That's Sinn. It's in German, and it is the technical term. And this is what is expressed in a thought. Right? So we can have the same thought, and it can be expressed, or it can have the same thought can have this, or let me put it this way: you can have the same sign produce different senses, and this means that they are functionally different thoughts. Right? For example, let's go to lunch, right? Let's go to lunch can be expressed in multiple, is a simple expression, right? That can have multiple meanings. Right? If you're talking to a coworker, and then it's just like, let's grab lunch. However, if you're talking to your crush, it could mean date me, please. Right? So it's an invitation to a date in one case, it's an invitation just to grab food in the other. Same sign, same expression, different senses. And finally, there is the nominatum or referent. Right? This is what is referred to in the world, the actual object referred to through the use of language. Now, for his sense theory of meaning, Frege takes these three things and basically does math with language. Right? From these three things, he develops a theory that essentially says language is the expression of mathematical-like functions between these elements. And there are four principal functions that make up the use of language. The first one is the function of expression, right? And this is going to be the relationship between a sign, remember, the parts that make up a thought, right, or a sentence or a word, and its sense. Right? This is not, and this is going to be widely variable, right? As we just saw earlier. Let's grab lunch. Well, that can just be, an invitation for food, an indication that you're hungry, or it could be an invitation for a date. It could be an invitation for a business proposal. It can be any manner of things because it can have any number of meanings. The second function is the relationship between the sense and the referent, right? And this is a form of what's known as a one-to-one onto relationship. This means that for every sense, right, every particular sense picks out a particular referent in the world, a particular nominatum, right? And it doesn't pick out multiple ones, it picks out one. Every sense or every individual use of a sense picks out one referent in the world. Right? So it determines how a particular sense relates to actual things in the world. Right? So again, using the example of same expression, different meanings. Let's use the example of I'm looking for a house, right? Where the phrase or the term a house is used in a general sense. Right? If it's indefinite, right? Then that's the sense in which you might use it when discussing with a realtor. Right? You're not looking for a particular house. The expression a house here just means any house. You might have some restrictions, but you're looking for a new place to live. Right? It's a substitute expression functionally that has the same meaning equivalently. In the second case, where the phrase a house is used to refer to a specific house, right? This might be what you're the way the way you say it when you pull over to the side of the road because your phone's dead and you need to ask a random bystander for directions, right? I'm looking for a house, right? As in, I'm looking for a particular address. So two different senses, same expression, right? And it's two different senses because of one term. Right? The rest of it's the same. I'm looking, right? I'm looking for. It's just the use of house is different. Right? So different senses mean different reference. Right? And that's what gives something its direct and involved meaning. The third function is the relationship between sign and referent, right? And this is the function of meaning, right? And this is a form of direct reference, right? And specifically, the German term for this is bedeutet, which means to mean. It means. And this is going to be where the sign directly refers to the object, right? Directly refers to the reference. It's a case where proper names are in place, right? When we use terms like New York City, I, you, Gottlieb Frege, right? And Professor Williams, we're picking out one particular entity in the world every time we use that. The thought I, anytime I think it, refers to me. The thought, whenever you use it, it refers to you, right? So pronouns are included in this. And it's probably a little bit clearer when we use something like, when we use the pronoun you, right? When I say you, I'm either referring to I'm always either referring to one particular person or perhaps a small group of people, right? Or, a vague entity, but the vague entity being like a reader who reads me saying, when you do this. Right? So it's picking out one individual. In the case of me saying you here, it's picking out you who are watching this, right? Whoever that may be. It's not picking out whoever's behind you or to the left of you. It's you in particular. Right? Same thing with London. If we say, I want to visit London, right? Well, we mean one place in particular. Right? It's not like it's a choice between, meaning is a choice between London, Texas and London, UK. We mean one particular place. We're referring to one particular place directly. The very thought of London carries with it the reference to that particular place. Now, in the last case, the very last function is a combination of the first two. Right? And this itself is a different function, because while those are each one-place functions, this is a two-place function. Right? And as a two-place function, what this means is this is how we express or how a particular expressed sense is fixed to a specific referent, right? And this is what allows us, the two-place nature of this function is what allows us to differentiate thoughts, even though they talk about the same thing, and can have and allows them to have different meanings. It also is what allows us to learn new things about old things. Right? The famous example that Frege himself uses is Hephaestus is the morning star, and phosphorus is the evening star. Right? In ancient times, these were considered to be two very different things. And then you get Tycho Brahe or Nicholas Copernicus. I can't recall exactly who it was. These are both ideas that have different meanings, different senses, right? But in reality, I believe it was Tycho Brahe, used the telescope and saw that they were both Venus. Right? One was just Venus seen as the sun reflected off of it from behind in the morning, and the other was the Venus being lit up by the setting sun in the evening. Right? And you only saw them at those two times. This is what allows the statement, Hephaestus is phosphorus to be meaningful. It's not saying A equals A, it's saying A equals B, because they're referring to it in two different contexts. It's the same way we can talk about Professor Williams teaches Intro to Philosophy and Professor Williams enjoys rock climbing. Right? Same person, two different sets of information. Right? Professor Williams is a rock climber. Right? So it allows us to learn new information, right? About a subject by realizing that identity is a transient feature in language.